If it's all right with you, G, I think today I'd love to have a conversation about a couple of your plans moving forward and ideas. You've talked about you want to create an online course and you want to do some in-person workshops as well, and we'll definitely jump into that today. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to sort of go through some of your process behind that, how that's been to create that, how it is going through your own head as well, and hopefully help out the audience here as well if they've got any ideas of things that they would like to create for themselves.
Yeah, Mike. Well, look, as creatives, we always have so many things in our head. Right? Whether that's coming into reality or not, we don't know. Some people fall apart. I mean, some things might fall apart, but at least if I've got 17 in my plate and then three is going ahead, I'm happy with that. But yeah, there's a lot in plan right now.
You've been wanting to do an astrophotography course for some time now. I've been talking with you about it for a while. You're obviously a very excellent astrophotographer. You've been working in that for years, and we can definitely talk about your work in that. But you've been wanting to bring that into like educating others as well. And I think you've definitely got a skill in that area, and you've done in-person classes before and helped other people there, but then wanting to translate that online. I'd wonder, where did that idea first come from for you? And then we'll kind of jump into what your idea is then moving forward.
I just love going out. I just love going out, going camping, and Astro is such a beautiful thing to do. I did not plan to go into Astro until I was like, people say you got to find your own niche, that sort of stuff. I don't believe that anymore now because you are the niche, right? But back then, and I still carry it on until now, is like, I'm going to make something different. Maybe I'm just going to brand myself as astrophotographers and then shoot more Astro because I do really enjoy it anyway. And if I can combine the Astro with couple, right, with whether that's a wedding couple, pre-wedding couple engagement, they'll be great. Um, I haven't done so many of that because this Astro thing is not comfortable. Normally, it happens during nighttime, very dark, very cold. Right. I do want to create astrophotography courses. I've done workshops already because me myself as a educator, if you want to put it that way, I've actually purchased a lot of courses myself. I've learned from other people myself.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said for people who have gone through other courses before. You start to realize that, oh, hang on, I could actually do this as well. Like there isn't anything, and I think so often we get in our own head of thinking that we couldn't be the one to educate on a certain thing. And I'd love to get your perspective on that of how you thought about, well, I could actually do something like this. Because I think a lot of people, when they first have that idea, they then pull themselves back and say, hang on, I haven't got the experience, or I haven't been working in this for X amount of years, or I haven't done any education before, so I'm not the right person. How was that thought process for yourself, thinking like, oh, I could create a course on this?
Yeah, I mean, at one point, I'm sure every one of us got through that mindset, and sadly, it still sit with most of the people. But I truly believe every single one of us is unique, and every single one of us have something to share, and every single one of us can teach other people as long as you are, let's say, the level of knowledge is between 0 to 10. Even if you're on the level 2, you can still teach people that are on level 1 or 0, right? So every one of us got something to share and teach.
You only need to be like 10% better than someone else, or understand 10% more than they do to be able to help them. And I've always gone about that. And I think that so often we get in our own heads of thinking that we're going to be helping people who are further ahead than where we are. But I think that's often something that can hold people back, because more often than not, you're not helping those people. And those people aren't even online trying to find an online course because they already understand that stuff, right? You're helping people who are in that stage of sort of searching for more information. They're the real people that you can help.
Yeah. Plus, you don't want to have too much gap between your knowledge and the people that you want to help because it's becoming so irrelevant for them. It's just going to be too much for them to catch up.
Mm. I'm glad you brought that up, G, because I think that that's something that I've struggled with in the past few years as I try to educate other people, trying to understand being able to put yourself in the headspace of someone that's just starting to educate them is actually quite hard, especially as as you grow and these skills become easy to you because you do them every day, right? It's harder to put yourself into a position of someone who is just starting. Like, what would they need to know? And if you
We forgot how it was when we
and
started.
sometimes people who are too advanced can't go back that far. And so there's that whole, like you just said, of people who aren't who aren't at the absolute best, but they can still help people that are just starting because they understand what it was like because they've just come through that. And having that sort of relatability to people who are just starting is often much more helpful in the education space.
I totally agree. That's very, very important.
I'm interested, G, what was the, idea for you? You talked about that everybody has got, their own unique thing that they can, their own unique angle that they can go about it. I'm sure if I learned from you, it would be the same as learning from anyone else. What was it that you first thought that you had to bring to the table? I'm always interested of what people think that their own sort of unique thing is, because I think we all have our own unique thing, but being able to put words on it is often hard. So if you had the words, how would you describe what it is that you bring to the table uniquely you?
We often overthink about, what makes us different, right? And I used to be like that too. Oh, what's my points of difference? But now, just be yourself. I just be myself. The way I carry out myself, the way I talk, the way I interact with other people. Uh, just be yourself. I think when you be yourself, that's your uniqueness, because no one can be like you. That's why you're your own niche, and the way you carry out yourself will attract people that's vibing with you. So don't overthink about you got to have certain attitude. You got to swear. You got to not swear. You just be yourself, man.
Hmm. I think a lot of people hear that though, and they don't know what that actually means for them. I think so. I think that, and I definitely felt that when I first started. Like, I wanted, how do I be myself? Like, who am I even? Like, I think we all have that existential crisis of like, well, who am I now? Who do I need to be? And we often go too far into, oh, I haven't seen this done before, so I'm going to be that personality. And then they'll get 2 years down the track and realize that's not me. And they'll have to come back to the starting blocks again. And I think that's part of the process of growth, right? And we've all gone through that. Was there anything when you were first starting that you were like just trying to do to try to be unique, or things that you realized weren't you? And how did you then reposition yourself back onto just being you?
Yeah, of course, man. I think this is just a general mindset, right? Photography or not, we always aspire to be someone that's likable. Put it that way. So growing up, I've seen many of my friends that look so cool, and I was like trying to be like them. And then throughout the journey, I started hearing people talking not so good stuff about those cool dudes, right? However you want to act, there's always people that like you, and there's always people that don't like you, and that is totally fine. I think from that point, I was just like, I'm just gonna do whatever that feels right for me, um, and hold your values. My value is humanity, right? I vibe with people regardless of their race, religions, sexual orientation, that sort of stuff. So that's really grounded me. I think when I talk to other people, I don't know where I'm going with this now, but but that's my common ground. I think that's our common ground that I approach.
I think a lot of people, struggle to really find what that thing is. And you are very someone who is super unique and has always been you. And you're the exact same person online as in person. I think that's always the sort of highest compliment that you can give anyone, is that if, like, when I hear that I'm the same person in person that I am online, I'm like, that's great, because I'm not pretending to be anyone. But so many people, struggle to put that version of themselves out there online just to be comfortable with themselves. Have you got any advice that you'd give to other people who are putting themselves out there, are seeing maybe a bit of pushback from other people about they're not, that other people who don't vibe with them and they're not in the right crowd yet? Have you got any advice for those types of people?
Eventually, if you keep broaden and find new friends, new communities, eventually you will find your crowd. And if you're being yourself, the crowds that you find are the crowds that's vibing with you. That's even better.
I think that's like, I've always gone by that like saying of like, I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not. Because you go down, if you get too much admiration for someone who you aren't, if you're trying to play someone else and pretend to be like you're someone else, and then people sort of fall in love with that person, it then can sort of eat away at you because that's not who you are. They've sort of fallen in love with who you're pretending to be. So I think that's so important that when you are yourself from the start, you then, it may be a slower path, but you'll attract people who definitely more aligned with you and your work.
Yeah, I agree. And we don't live in the 70s or 60s anymore where you can't find that community, right? You basically set in a community that you're born in. That makes it a lot harder. But now, find your friends.
Like, yeah, like online, being able to educate people online and be able to learn things online as well. Like, we're not in that age where you had to go to school to be able to learn things. Like all the education was controlled by a few certain groups, and so if you didn't sort of learn in that style, how would you learn things? Whereas I'm so grateful that we're in the age we're in today, where we can learn things and we can choose directly who we go to get our education as well. And this is why I think like the online courses, online communities, online education as a whole, I think is so great, because whilst I may educate, there could be 100 other educators that do things in a completely different way to how I do them. And there's going to be someone for everyone. Like, you don't have to agree with how I do it. You don't have to appreciate my style. That's okay, because there is someone else for you. And I think that that's great, because we can all find our little community and our own little slice.
100%. We can both explaining aperture at the same time, right? But we will explain it a little bit differently with our own style, and people are going to vibe differently. And that's cool.
Yeah, and I think that's really positive when it comes to talking about, you starting an online course, is that you could attract people who really resonate with your style and your work. Have you thought about that? Has there been any sort of fears around that when thinking about starting that, you wouldn't be able to find people who are interested? Because I know a lot of things for me, when I think about being able to put anything out there online, it's okay to have a community of people who I talk to and who I like work with every day. But then when to create something like an online course, I'm often thinking about, well, maybe people won't enjoy this as much. Have you had any of those sort of insecurities or different fears around having something like that out there?
100%. But I'm still going to go ahead. Yeah, 100%. I think every one of us has come across that.
Well, what are some of the ways that you think about sort of getting over those insecurities? I'd love to hear about how you sort of talk to yourself about that, because I think it is something that, a lot of people struggle with and don't think that they will be able to find their space.
I'll break it down into two parts here. As far as creating the online course here, I don't have as much insecurities as if I'm good enough or not anymore, as much as I was 7 years ago, so to speak. So instead of thinking about that, my focus is create the courses as good as I can possibly do, and put out value, and think from the perspective that from someone that's never shot astrophotography, what are those the challenges that they might come across. And it's come from a lot of workshops that I hosted. It came from astrophotography classes or workshops that I've been to. So I'm trying to formalize everything and just create something that is, I think, useful for the audience. So not so much thinking from, is it going to be good enough? There's not so much insecurities in that sense, put it that way. But if we're talking about insecurities, yes, I had the huge things of insecurities when I started doing the vlog videography 7-8 years ago. But how I came across that is just keep doing it, right? I think I probably told you as well. I probably share this story with on Instagram somewhere. My first vlog, I was doing the vlog on Piedmont Bridge in Darling Harbour, 2017. I was shaking. I was holding Nikon D750 with the Rode Video Mic Pro mic, which is like big setup, and then big Joby Gorilla Pod, right? But I thought I'm just gonna do it and wing it anyway. I'm glad I did that, and it's just a repetition from there. That's one, and then also the mindset shift as well. I think when we are insecure, we think too much about ourselves. We worry too much about ourselves, whether ourselves going to look good or not, how we're going to get judged. But in reality, if you shift the mindset, and this is the biggest unlock for me, by the way, when I shift my mindset into, instead of thinking about how I look like, I'm thinking about what value that I can bring to the people watching this vlog or watching this video. The more benefits that I can share, the more it's useful for other people, then that's what I'm aiming for. So I'm no longer thinking about how I look like, and all those insecurities are gone in an instant.
That's such a good thing to bring up, G. I think that I was the same when I first started. It was like, it's so weird to put yourself out there. And when you've got, when the expectation is, or is sort of riding on your own personality, that's when you can really get yourself down and thinking like, I'm not the type of person who should be doing this. But that was such a good sort of reframing that you went through there about how can I help people, right? And I did the same thing when I was first starting. It was like, let me just give people as much as I possibly can. So it removes that barrier of me having to be this big personality when I start. So they're not sort of falling in love with my personality. They're here because I'm helping them, and they can then see that I'm actually a good person and trying to help them. And my personality comes through that. You're removing that barrier of not feeling like you have to be the thing. It's like, no, I'm going to help you and try to show you that I'm actually here to help through the process. And then if they fall in love with the personality throughout, that great. But that's not why they were there in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. And everyone's got their own obstacles. And most of the time, those obstacles are just in their head, right? Like me, for example, English is not my first language. I don't think I look handsome enough or good enough to be the influencers. But those are just the narratives or story that you create in your head. Once you overcome that and think about the audience on the other side of the camera, then you're sweet, man.
I've spoken about that so much before, G, that I think about, like, for us too, like, I'm not as experienced as you. I don't have as much time in the industry that you do. And sometimes I think, who am I to be sort of sharing this type of stuff? But we all have our strengths, and we all have our things that we're just not there yet with, Like, I sometimes sit back and think, oh, I shouldn't be talking about this certain thing because I'm not as experienced as these other people. And same for you. You might think, I've got all the experience, but I don't know how to communicate. I'm not as good as a communicator as these people. We all have our things that we struggle with. But I think one of the things that you brought up before was like, just continue. Just how do you improve? You do that by practicing. And if you don't ever start, you can't practice.
Yeah. And there's always someone else who's better than you, and that's totally fine.
I had a very hard time coming to accept that when I was first starting, like accepting that there could be people who would have things to say about my work because they understood like more about it than me. And that's okay. And understanding that they weren't the people I was trying to help anyway, but you have to let that go. And as much as, you've talked about it, having to let go of not being the best is really like a freeing experience.
How did you get over that? How did you come across that?
I think I sort of came over it the hard way in that, like I said, like I was getting I would get responses from people, and I'd get like messages from people sort of saying that I wasn't totally correct on these certain things. And I think how I computed it in my own head was like, I make a lot of like short, easy to digest sort of content. And so my reframe was, I'm helping people just starting. How can I, in the easiest way, explain this thing to someone as if they had no idea of what I was talking about? So yes, it may not be the most 100% accurate way to explain something. If I was talking to someone who'd been in the industry 10 to 15 years, this is not how I would explain it, right? So when I got those people saying, hey, this isn't quite right, I had to reframe it in my own head of like, well, they're not my audience. They're not who I'm helping. And yes, they know more than me. And yes, I can learn something from them, because it is hard to not take those things to heart when you get that bit of like pushback from people who know more than you. But I sort of had to reframe it as, not everyone's out to hurt you. They're just trying to help. And majority of the time, these people were trying to help explain something to me. And you have to remove that ego of yourself to say, like, to not go back at them and say, hang on, no, I know that. Of course, I understood that. You've got to say, oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for helping me understand that even more, so that I can now help these other people. And you've got to get ego out of it, because most people, aren't out to hurt you, especially these people who you have never spoken to before. The internet's a weird place where people don't have any sort of barrier up. Like they'll just talk as if they can just say whatever they want to anyone. But often it's not like personal. It's more of a reflection on them, and that they want to help people, but they don't have the platform, or they're not in the position to help people, and they're envious of you. So you shouldn't be, envious of where they are, because they're probably feeling the same way.
Yeah, 100%. Especially with the photography, as we know, there's so many variables. When you shoot something, you approach a scene, there's so many variables. So, of course, if you're looking at it from a bigger level, on a bigger picture, right, the small 10, 15 seconds theory that you teach might not cover the whole thing, and they can always approach from different angles and then blame you at something, but you're doing really well, Mark.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate that. You talked about practice before and how you've just got to keep turning up and keep doing the thing. I'm interested, and I hope this is not too much of a stretch here, because you talk about your online course. We've been talking about it for a while. It's still not here yet, Jay. Well, I'm interested. What are some of the hurdles that you're trying to overcome? Because I think this will help a lot of other people that probably have the same idea. And there's a lot of people who, I myself included, have had ideas that I've just stayed on for years at a time and thinking, oh, it's not the right time yet to work on that, or I haven't got this thing quite perfect yet, so I can't put it out there. I'm wondering for you, because you're in it right now, what are some of the things and some of the hurdles that you're coming up against?
There's many hurdles, right? I think from me personally, it could be a bit of an inconsistency happening. And to overcome that, I, gather some good friends, be in a community, including with Mike Jeffrey over here. And these people help me accountable. So it's moving forward in the back end. I start to plan everything, bullet points, everything, the deliverables and all that. But the biggest hurdle for me is the system. That's my bottleneck. When you doing the online course, you want to put it out there to as many people, as many eyeballs as possible. And automation, it's kind of a must. That's where I got stuck. So I need big help in that. At the moment, I'm learning bit by bit as well from other creators, especially the system, because as you know, there's a lot of moving parts, and you got to subscribe into like multiple platforms, paying multiple fees. Not only that, you got to know how to put them together so they work in sync. I'm still trying to find which of those systems that is most efficient and also can deliver the best experience for my audience.
I think if I had to say one thing to that, G, I think that one of the biggest things that I had when I first launched my online community, and I'll explain a little bit about that in just a minute, that I wish I'd learned to walk before I learned how to run. And I sometimes think that I went too far when I was first starting and thought that I had to have everything in place before I had some of these earlier things down pat. Like I could have started with the easy option and then just upgraded and progressed from there. But instead I went, what would be the best way to do this? Let me go to the best people, ask them what's the best way, and let's get everything in place. And it was great. And then all of a sudden it was just way too much. And I think because I hadn't learnt how to do the easy bits first and I just went all in, And I sometimes tell people now, I'm like, just start with an easy version. If it is a online course, whatever, just start with a smaller group. Start with a group that you can experiment with before you're starting. And I know that you've done in-person classes, which is a really good step when you're thinking about educating at all. Like, learn how to talk to people and learn how to answer their questions. Because if you can do it in person, online's a breeze. Like, start there, start small groups. That's what I would have, really, I think was one of the things that I was trying to bite off too much at the start and didn't just take those little small incremental steps.
Yeah, it's funny that because we don't know what we don't know, right? And this is all part of the learning process. If had I approached it the way you approach it, I would probably have that same thoughts, and I will give another advice. But I'm approaching from this end of the process, then I would always like, oh, what if I approach it different way, which is yours? So this is why community is important, because we can then brainstorm and share our experience and find the best practice.
Yeah, I love being able to talk to other people who've done things because, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. And when you jump in, I think that's why I tell people, start at the start. Just start something, because you'll learn more from starting than you ever will watching anything on YouTube, from any blog post. You'll learn more from starting, because you'll have all these hurdles that you didn't even realize were hurdles, right? And you'll have to learn to overcome them all as you're starting. But I think I jumped too far in that I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And then I jumped in and I was like, oh, hang on. Like, there's so much to do here. There's too much for me to try to learn at one time. So I had to really come back and really backtrack. I said that I was going to kind of tell the story of like how I started. Was like, I wanted to make this big online course community. I wanted this big overarching community that I had that was going to be a bunch of separate little courses inside this community. And so it could be a place for people to come and learn a heap of different things, but they were going to be all sort of spread out and they could learn everything that I do basically inside there. And then I started uploading a few things in there, and I just realized it was too much to handle because I didn't have any information in there when I first started. And then I pulled that. I was into that probably 2 months, and I then had to close that community. Like I had students in there, and I closed it down because it was just starting to get out of hand for me. Too much to try to take care of when I was first starting, when these hurdles came up. And then I went back to the drawing board and said, well, what's just the one thing that I could educate on, right? I was trying to spread myself too thin and educate on everything from the start and add everything in there and just have it all as a one-stop place for everyone could go. And that's when I created my photo editing course just on its own, just standalone, because I was like, let me strip back. Inside that big community that I first started, I had videos in there on editing, but I had other things as well happening in that community. Like that was the idea, was I was going to talk about editing. I was going to talk about Flash. I was going to talk about how to use your camera. I was going to talk about like emails and automations and everything else, right, inside this one community. Like everything was going to be in there. It was just going to be a place everyone could go to be able to learn everything. And if you didn't like editing, well, there were going to be other things in there that you could learn about. Or if you didn't like Flash, well, you could learn about editing, right? There was going to be a heap of stuff in there. And I just realized it was way too much. Like I went too far. And I look back now and I think it's a great idea. Like I still think it's a good idea, but I think it wasn't the right idea for where I was, right? And so I had to close it down. And then I went back out with my online editing course. And the actual thing that I found was I had more success with the editing course because firstly, I could just dedicate my time to just editing. So I knew specifically what I was going to be talking about. But also communicating that to other people was so much easier. Be like, they knew what they were signing up for. They were just signing up to do editing, right? So if you needed help on it, that was it. Whereas the other one was just everything. I think it helped people much more because it was a lot more tailored to what people were after. And if you weren't after it, of course, I got some people saying, oh, I'm not sure if that's right for me. Are you able to do something else? And you've got to sort of push those things to the side for a bit, because I get asked to do other education on a lot of other things. But I said, no, I've got to sort of dedicate myself to this one thing. I think through doing that, I learned so many skills, like you said, like automations and skills on the back end, that then probably now I could go back in and do an extra course, right? I could do a course on anything else, or or have an overarching community. You know what I mean? Because I came back and learned how to crawl first, crawl and then walk, and then now I'm slowly upgrading. You know what I mean? Instead of just jumping right in. But I think people forget that you can do that. I think people forget that you could just have a online course that you only sell 10 to 15 like openings to, like, and get those people in a group, work with them at a smaller price, kind of see what works, and then use their feedback to then expand on it the next time. And I forgot that when I first started. I was like, no, I've got to do everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm planning to do, because to go back to whether I think this is good enough, I was tossing if I should get a smaller community of maybe like 20, max maybe 30 people, with a way smaller price point, so I can teach them live and then give the live feedback, and then after that taking all this feedback and then create the proper courses, or I just straight jump in and create a course. So that's the thing that I'm still tossing. So if you guys watching and you think that you want to go one way or another, you prefer one way or another, then yeah, contact me.
I think it's something that so many people, and I got that too, because my editing course I was there and I did all the classes like live online, like obviously not in person, but I was turning up and it wasn't like pre-recorded. I was there every class, right? And I always would get that pushback from people being like, well, it's not on my time zone, so it's not going to work. I can't turn up live. Like I want pre-recorded. And then the other people anyone who turned up to the class would be like, this is great because we could actually ask you things because you were right there. And I was like, yeah, like there's upsides and downsides to both. Like obviously it's not pre-recorded, so you can't access it any time and I can't go through as much, but I'm also there in person, so you could ask me more if you can turn up. There's no right or wrong, and any way can work. And I think we get so caught up in our heads of like, well, if it's not perfect, then I can't start it. Like, right? Like I'm at a point now where I'm thinking I could use everything that I've learned and I could do a pre-recorded course now for those other people who weren't able to come, right? But the people who came through are still going to get more out of it if you turn up and can ask me things, of course. But that's not going to compete with a pre-recorded course because they're not the same type of thing.
Yeah. And I'm also glad that you brought up multiple things that you juggled before you ended up with this editing course, Mike, because a lot of people only see that, oh, Mike's doing the, teaching the editing course, but a lot of people don't know what all the mess that happened before you decided to go into just one course.
I think it's the exact same with anyone that you kind of see. Like you're not seeing people's version number 1, people's version 2. You're probably seeing people's version 5, 6. Like they've iterated on it enough times to be successful, right? And this is why people get stuck on that first hurdle. And I'm interested for you too, G. Like you've done a lot of things. You've done in-person classes. You've done, workshops and things like that. Has there ever been something that you've tried to do something, it hasn't worked, and then you've sort of gone back to the drawing board? How do you, and if so, how do you handle that? How do you get yourself back up again and sort of go back out? Because I think it's so hard if you put something out there in the world and it doesn't necessarily work the way that you expected it to go, if it's successful or not, who cares? But I think we have this idea in our heads of how it's meant to go. When things don't live up to what we thought it was going to be, how do you get yourself back up and go back out there in the world and try it again?
I think the biggest thing is don't judge yourself. It's okay if things not going as expected. Of course, it's going to be like a bit of a downer for a moment, but don't judge ourselves, right? As long as we do our best in giving value to our audience, that's number one. But yeah, I've got things that didn't go as planned. One thing that is still fresh is my photo tour to Bali last year. I collaborated with this team called Tour Hero. I can't remember. One of those. So they reached out to me saying that, hey, do you want to collaborate together and we can customize a photography tour to Bali? I was like, yes, let's do it. And we had a chat and we planned something. It's 5 days, 4 nights for the tour. That was meant to go in August and that didn't go ahead. there was a downer. So what happened was I was in Peru back in April, early April, and they published that tour about mid-April, and they needed me to sign up 6 people within 2 weeks for the tour to go ahead because they need to pay the supplies and lock everything in. So firstly, I was traveling in Peru, I was trekking, so I didn't have much time to promote the tour myself, to sell the tour. But the reason number two is because this is something that we put together just based on our what we think would do right, without me physically knowing what those locations look like, without me physically knowing where the light's coming from at certain times. Inside of me, I don't have the confidence to say, hey, we're going to go to this waterfall. We're going to shoot the Balinese dancer at certain time. We're going to have like beautiful golden hour. I don't have that confidence to sell something that I've never even been. Right? So because of those two reasons, I didn't promote much and it just didn't go ahead. But also because of that, this is a blessing in disguise, by the way, because that tour didn't go ahead. I then have another job offer that I had to shoot concert in Jakarta. And the person flew me over from Sydney. So I was like, on the way to Jakarta, let me just stop over in Bali and then just scout those locations that I think can be a potential location for the workshop. So that's what I did. So I bumped into Bali. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you probably see my story back in August. I was just hire a scooter and just scout the islands, riding about 3 hours, 300 kilometers each day, just to scout the location that I think can be good for, especially astrophotography, the night photography. And so I do then find a couple of spots. Now I went back to the Tour Hero guys. I said, hey, I've got some spots now, that I'm confident that we can make this happen. So let's plan another one. So we are now in the pipeline of planning another one. We're aiming for about July or August next year.
That's amazing, Jay. I feel like that would have been such a downer when the trip didn't go ahead, but you really pulled yourself back out of that for sure. And to go over there and like scout it, you talked about confidence, and I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, not having the confidence to like promote something, but then to turn up and do the workshop or whatever the thing may be that they're working on. How important is that to you in process? Because I think there's a lot of people that get stuck on not having the confidence to do something, and that holds them back.
I think that thing, the lack of confidence, came from me doubting if my audience gonna get the best experience or not, right? Because I've never been to that place. But had I been to that place and I've got big confidence in what I can shoot, where I can shoot, at what time I can shoot in the certain locations, then my confidence levels are high. But just like for everything else, all my educational stuff, workshops, courses, the main point that I'm thinking of here is the audience who consume my contents, right? Who's coming to the workshop. As long as I know that I can give best experience to them, then my confidence level will be pretty high.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to succeed in the sort of long term. But I think it can certainly hold us back in the like short term, because there are so many other people that probably would have gone ahead with that workshop and would have said, hey, I can host it. I'll just work out spots on the fly. Whereas you were so much like, no, I want to make sure that I know the locations and I know that they're going to give value to people, that we can go to some really cool spots. I think it's sort of the blessing and the curse of that. Yes, we can help people in the like long term, but so many people are stuck on the start lines because they don't ever feel like they have something that they can use to help people. They don't ever feel like worthy enough. They don't feel confident enough in their own abilities, when they may be a long way ahead of these other people who are also hosting things. We just don't see those insecurities from those people.
True. I think the way that I visualize that is, let's say, out of the scale 0 to 10, if you're on level 3, look up level 4, 5, 6, or 10 and learn from the top, but you focus on the teaching to the bottom, to the people that are lower level than you.
It's hard because our eyes are always up, right? We're always like, I don't know about you, but on Instagram, I have a lot of other people, a lot of artists, a lot of photographers who I really like look up to, and so we're constantly admiring their work. That we subconsciously feel like we're not at that stage, so we're not them. So we feel less worthy than them. Whereas there are people below us who like look up to us, who to them we are that person. So who are we to not do these things and not put ourselves out there because we are those people to someone else?
I know. I think in that sense as well, Mike, like people like you and I, we do have, and all the creators out there, we do have responsibilities to an extent to make people aware about all of these, right? So that's why I'm not flexing staying in a 5-star hotel, cocktail by the pool. No, because I don't want to glorify all these successes, right? But you want to share the processes. You want to show them the real thing behind the scenes, the obstacles. So we do have these responsibilities.
I think a lot of people would hear from you that you got sort of outreach from a company like Or Hero about organizing this workshop and think, wow, gee, like how do you get an opportunity like that? How does this just end up in your inbox?
Put yourself out there.
Can you sort of talk us through that process of how that happened, and then what was your reaction to that when you first got that?
I've always want to host a photography tour, whether that's in-person workshop, whether that's multi-day tour. That's always been my dream. Working with Nikon Australia, that's always been my dream. So I feel like everything's coming together now, like step by step. Of course, I'm like stoked, man. When Nikon reached out to me, when I hosted the first in-person workshop with Nikon, I was freaking nervous, but I was stoked. Same with Tour Hero when they reach out to me. I don't know how they reach out to me or why, but I'm pretty sure it's because of either following or they see me putting myself out there. They probably see a potential in someone's running the tour. There's a lot of magic happens when you put yourself out there, man.
It's crazy the opportunities that can come just from putting yourself
just like
out
you.
there. And you never...
Italy.
Yeah. Italy, I know, right? I'll be already home from Italy when this episode airs, so hopefully it's probably already been all over my Instagram. But like another crazy opportunity that just came because me being online and being able to put myself out there, and you never know who's watching what you do online. Like it's crazy to think that you put yourself out there so much, and that there are people who are interested in the work that you do, and then crazy people from all these parts of the world.
100%. And then probably 2 parts: putting yourself out there and then provide value to your audience, right? If you're putting yourself out there, you're only flexing about the Ferraris and Lamborghinis, I don't know who you're going to attract, right?
I don't have a Ferrari or Lamborghini, G. Do you have you got one?
I'm not telling you. No, man, like, yeah, give value.
I think that's always been something that you've done, especially, and I think it'll come across a lot, in any sort of online education that you do, whether it be about astrophotography or anything else. Like, you provide a lot of value. I'm wondering, when it comes to planning out an online course, if we go back to that, how much prep is sort of too much? Like, where are you thinking about that at the moment? Of like, can you get caught up too much in what we need to know, what the students need to get out of this, versus just going along with it and seeing what sort of things they ask and then iterating as you go?
Yes, Mike. I think when we get to the certain level that we're doing these naturally, you can definitely get caught up in planning too much and delivering too much. And I feel that as well when I'm running in-person workshops. Sometimes I feel like the information I'm giving out can be too much, and you can tell when they don't seem interested anymore, and if they feel overloaded, then you just need to stop, like cut down. Same with the online courses. So I'm planning everything here. I just have to be careful and always coming back and check in with myself when I started learning astrophotography is this information's easy to digest. Is there any better way to deliver this information so it is easy to digest? Or is it too much? But I won't know until I put it out there and get the feedback from the students. That's why I'm tossing if I should do the like pre-launch so people can learn from me and give feedback first, or just like jump into the deep end. But I might do the first one.
Is there anything that you've sort of taken away from in-person classes, workshops, any sort of feedback from those that you've used that's been really helpful when creating this online education?
I think coming from the in-person workshop, there's a lot of frequently asked questions. So those frequently asked questions are what I try to address in a longer form on in more elaborative informations in the online courses. But that's definitely a lot because in-person course that I've done, in-person workshop that I've done for astrophotography, they only went for 3 hours. As there's so much information, there's only so much information you can deliver within 3 hours. And there's a lot more in the back end, including editing. Again, like astrophotography, it's about 50%. Well, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say 50% planning, 30% shooting, and 20% editing. So, well, that's just the makeup numbers. But you get what I mean. It made up from three components: planning, shooting, and editing. And when you're in an in-person workshop for 3 hours, you can only teach them so much about the planning and a bit about the shooting, but not really the editing.
And I'm sure you get a lot of people, ask you about that sort of stuff afterwards, and you're like, well, why don't I just create this online course to help these people? And I'm sure I've always thought about it this way, like if I get one question from one person, then I know that other people have the exact same question as well. So why don't I just create something for them?
I agree. Yeah, that's where it came from.
For sure. I think that being able to put that all into one thing is a real skill, but equally, like you said before, the other skill is like knowing what to remove and not overwhelming people. And I definitely do that when I first started, with thinking that I needed to put everything into one course and get too specific. And sometimes people were still back and would often ask questions about things that were very, easy for me because I do them all the time, but they're the things that I needed to spend longer on. How have you been thinking about that process? Like, how much time do you allocate to each different thing, and what things do you have to remove in order to give more time to other things?
Yes, I'm planning to make it into, of course, sections. So it's just not one full 40 minutes, 1 hour long video of me talking, but I'll break it down into section. For example, like module number 1, planning, then location planning, time planning, date. Like I'll try to make it into bite size, maybe 5 to 10 minutes video each. But again, I don't know what is too much to the audience, what is too little, until I put it out there and get feedback. Talking about too much, I was planning into making this photography tutorial masterclass. There's one section that I was talking about introduction, the camera, aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, and where this is all coming from. And I wrote the whole essay about the history of the camera, the pinhole camera, because I want to give people and make them make sense about what aperture, shutter speed, and ISO is. Because people these days with a digital camera, they don't know where this all came from. So I wrote the whole essay about the history of the camera, like from the large format, medium format, and then the consumer 35 millimeter. But now I'm thinking about it, I was like, this is probably too much information.
It's hard because, I think it's like all interesting stuff. But you're like, when people are, and this is something that I had to think about, it's like when people are paying for an online course, they're paying for you to give them just the stuff that they need to know. Like often I think people think that, like I love when I see people advertise online courses as like 30 hours worth of content or whatever. And I'm like, I would never pay for a course that's like 30 hours worth of content, because I want like the idea I'm paying for is for you to condense it down to just the stuff I need to know. Like I don't think there's an upside to being like, I've got 100 hours of content. Like 100 hours of content is not good for me. Like I don't have 100 hours in my day to get through that content. Like that would take me forever and people probably wouldn't get to the end of it. And so I think the reframe for you to say, I'm trying to help people. Well, how do you best help people is like make sure they get to the end of it. And how do you do that? Well, make it easy to get through, make it condensed, actually give them things to step them through each one so they continue to come back.
Yes, exactly. I don't think the audience would care about how many hours are the module in the course. What they care really is if they can achieve the goal within the shortest amount of time.
You've done a lot of online courses before. Is there things that you've sort of taken away and sort of thought about, oh, that's a really good idea. Like that was really something that they did that kept me hooked to continue to stay through the course?
Well, it's a couple of things really. Maybe from the material, the delivery point. Some's not, like, for example, the location planning, the time wise, the tools that being used, like that. There's always gap, right? I'm trying to fill in that gap, and also from the delivery standpoint, is also sometimes you get those photographers that deliver online course in like a very low energy. This is not right or wrong, by the way. This is just more personality thing. So yeah, I got pretty sleepy watching those kind of online courses. So hopefully when I deliver that, I get more energy to get people engaged.
You have to go about it from the way that you would best consume it, because I think that's, if you understand that's your audience and that's just you've got to go about it that way. Like there might be some people who love a very slow, relaxed thing that is probably going to put other people to sleep, but some people love that. And so there's already courses for that. You've got to do it your way. And I think, like you were talking about before, like what is the skill understanding? Like, well, what's the expectation? Where are they at? Are they someone who's just starting? Do you need to explain what aperture ISO is? Or are they supposed to be a bit more advanced? Can you assume that they already understand that and will just skip right by it? Or is there an optional sort of pre-course that they can do if they haven't got that, or you can just like skip over it if you already understand it? These are things that's like really running through the head of like, who is this course for? And I think once you've got a good idea of who it's for, that I think makes everything else in the planning so much easier.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. And you got to deliver it in a way that you want to consume it. Yes. And you got to accept that this is not everyone's going to vibe with you, and that's totally fine.
Let's kind of talk about process and systems and some of the hurdles that you were talking about before, and also being consistent as well. Is there anything specifically? I'm always open to talk about tools and strategies for other people as well. If they're at this stage into this episode, I'm sure they're interested to know about, how you're planning on hosting it, any back and forths of anything that you want to ask me about things, the way that we're thinking about going about things to help other people. So I'd love you to sort of talk about what you've been thinking about and what are some of the things and hurdles that you've been overcoming in terms of systems and how to host this course.
Yeah, so with the system itself, there's so many options out there to host your courses, and it comes with, because this is the thing that I am still learning myself, right? To get a course up and running successfully, obviously you need a couple of steps to get people find your course and can purchase your course and then go through your course with ease. And also, ideally, from the marketer standpoint, you need a system that also integrate with, you can send newsletter, emails, get them engaged, and then that you can provide values, like bite-sized values to them. I'm still learning to go through that. I kind of tossing between two platforms now. There's a platform called Kajabi and Pablo. Not many people heard of Pablo. But yeah, I'm still learning on that part, Mike. So I don't have the exact answer or solid answer to that yet.
I think if I could say anything, it's like just like choose one and don't overstress it. It's like I get a lot of people ask me, especially about like let's even strip back. Let's think about like when I first started my photography business, right? I started and I hosted my website. My first photography website was on Squarespace, right? Because everyone was hosting their website on Squarespace back then. It was everywhere, and it was just an easy option to get in, easy one to start with, right? I used it probably for the first 3 years, right? Until I realized that there were things that I couldn't do on Squarespace that I would like to do, right? And at that point, I transitioned over, and I don't host my website on Squarespace anymore. It's on for anyone that's interested. I don't have any brand. I'm not. I'm not anything to do with any of these.
Not sponsored.
Website providers, but that's where it is. And I moved over because it was heaps. It was easier for my blogs, and I could upload my images there. It was much better for SEO as well. Heap of different things, right? And I thought about the same thing when I was starting creating my online courses as well. I was like, look, let me just start with whatever. And if I eventually get down the road and I feel like I've got to transfer it over, yes, there's a hurdle, but there are things in place that, if you get a year in, I started with Kajabi and I worked out that, hey, that's not really for me. And now I'm with Circle because I use Circle because they have a better community feature, or they kind of did when I was starting. I think Kajabi's added a bit more community stuff in there. But again, I don't think we should get caught up in who we use. Like other people use School as well, and that's really good. Other people use heaps of others. There's heaps, right? You could use to do an online course. I think they all pretty much do this kind of the same thing. There's just a few specs that are different and a few different like price points, but overall that shouldn't be the hurdle, right? Like that shouldn't be what stops us from starting. So anytime anyone asks me which one should I use, I'm like, just choose one. Like, yes, some are better. Like I'll ask them what they're planning to do. Like if you're just doing an online course, maybe on Kajabi is the best way to go. I had a community element, so I went with Urkel. So like if there's specific things you want to do, yes, specific platforms might be better, but they're all pretty much the same, right? I think that, we can get ourselves caught up, and it's the exact same with emails as well. Like if anyone wants to know, I use ConvertKit for my email like marketing, but like you can use other ones. They basically all do the same thing. Like it's just ones are slightly better for different things, but you're not going to notice that much of a change. If you're not still promoting your course in 3 months, who cares what email provider you use, right? If you stop, it doesn't so just use one and use whichever one. And then if it's not working, you can transfer it all over. You can, as long as you find an email provider where you can download all the information and all the emails off it, and then you can move them over to a new one. That's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, most of them allow you to download the email information.
And so as long as you're using one that allows you to download email, don't use a free one that you can't download the emails. But as long as you're using something that you can transfer it wherever.
There's always a catch with the free stuff.
Yeah, there's always a catch with free stuff. But as long as you have one where you can download everything and it's all owned by you, you can transfer it wherever you want. So don't let that be the hurdle to starting.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. That's really good advice.
That's okay, G. I'm always happy to help.
It probably goes the same what camera should I choose? It's probably the same analogy.
I always tell people the best one is the one you have in your hand, right? Until you know why you're upgrading, I don't think you should upgrade. If you can't tell me why you're specifically upgrading, you're not at a point to upgrade yet. And so many people are saying, oh, it's my gear that's holding back, or I don't have the best website, or I don't have the best email automation thing. I'm like, well, what's holding you back? Is it your email automations, or is it that you're not writing out emails? Is it the platform that's holding you back, or is it you? And sometimes you've just got to come to terms with it. It's you holding yourself back, not the platform.
Yeah, exactly. I would say 90% of the time it's us.
Have you got a idea of a start date for your course, G? Just to throw it out there, just to get any ideas for...
Ooh, you got to keep me accountable now.
Yeah, to keep you accountable, G. I think it's important.
Well, look, if anything, I'll probably aim to have something off the ground by February. Why February? Because that's the very beginning of Astro season. I think it's ideal. Also, part of the Astro thing as well. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I want to be able to do the live shoot in the field, like me going into the field, live, and then broadcast it to the community, so that they can see what it is exactly like on the field. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but that's a plan.
It's so important to give yourself a start date, or to give yourself something to aim for, because if you don't have a date, even if you don't hit the date, you'll still get closer than if you didn't have a date. I think from what we've talked about, G, I think your best approach is kind of like starting small, even if it is a small group that you go through with it together, and kind of see what works for them and what they find helpful and not. And even if it means you've got to record things again, you can at least learn so much from that first group, and sort of remove a bit of that pressure on yourself to feel like you've got to put everything into the first one before it's out. Like, I think so many of us are like, oh, if I don't address everything, then I can't have it, especially when it's pre-recorded, right? Like, we think that if we pre-record everything and I forget something, then I can't have it out. I've got to go back and start again. But you could just start that first group there and see if they even bring that thing up, or see if they even have questions. And they might have questions that you didn't even think to address because you never ran it through a group. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
Are you planning just to record some behind the scenes of you doing those astro wedding portraits, G, and just throwing them in there and sort of like talking about your process?
Yeah, I do plan to do that because, I love Astro. I also love weddings. Been doing weddings for a while. I think it's unique to combine the Astro and a wedding couple portraits together. I hope that it's got value. And I'm not sure if it's going to fall into the right target audience, that the audience probably just want to learn about Astro itself. But I think it can be something very interesting. I might create this as an optional module or chuck it all in for free because it's only one extra module anyway. But that's the plan.
Well, I know it's definitely something that I hadn't done before. I did it with you at your in-person class we did last year. But then also like at camp as well, you sort of talked about. I know everyone who tries it's like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. So I think it'll be a really cool upsell. And if anything, like an add-on that people will actually get a lot from. Like they might be like, oh, I'm not an astro, I don't do astro, but it would be really, really cool to learn that other bit. And so you can sort of tap into other parts of the market who might be then interested in your other stuff as well. And we haven't really talked about it all in this episode, but I know we did in the last time we spoke, G, that you do a lot of different types of photography, videography work. You do a whole heap of stuff, and we haven't sort of touched on that in this episode. I'm curious as the transition into education. Like you've done a lot of in-person sort of corporate work before as well. What was the spark to add on education as an extra thing? I think a lot of us are like, we've got too much going on. Why would you want to put something else on your plate?
I do enjoy doing the educational stuff though. How I got dragged into it, it's not something that I planned in the very, very beginning of me doing photography. But as you know, eventually as you do things more and more, people are going to see you as someone with authority and someone who knows a lot of stuff. So they will ask you questions regardless of what camera to buy, what's the setting, how to troubleshoot. So that was just a smooth transition going into the educations, I guess. Started doing the one-on-one coaching, teaching my friend, and then get paid to do that, and then hosting the Nikon stuff and all that. But I really enjoyed it. And I think there's market for educations in Australia and also worldwide. And I think it's me believing that I can make a world a better place by helping people create their art as well. So I'll keep doing that.
That's great, Jay. I think it's really, really good. And I think it goes back to what we talked about at the start, like you just providing value and being your unique self. But I'm interested, like, are you planning to drop away a bit of your in-person work to spend more time on this? Like, I know a lot of people are like always try to think about it, and they're like, well, I can't dedicate time to it without having time from somewhere else, and I can't give 100%. When it comes to providing value to people, we're often like, I don't want to do something just halfway. I want to go all in on it and really provide something really good for people. How do you think about that?
If I have to choose, if there's a point that I must choose whether to keep working corporate, weddings, and education, I will choose educations. But I will not drop my work 100% because as an educator, you have to be in the field, right? You gotta be always on your toes. You gotta know what you're doing. You gotta be update with the market, what the trend is. You gotta be keep on the ground shooting.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said for actually knowing what you're talking about and being up to date, and trying to find that balance is so hard. That's definitely something I've struggled with, about how much do you go in. Like, you definitely want to dedicate more time to helping people, but you've got to still have your own skills up to a certain scratch as well. So it'd be interesting to see how you go with that over the next couple of years.
Me too, man. It's a scary but interesting plan.
If I just had one question to sort of close this out, G, I'm always interested to hear from other people, and I don't think we often get to talk about it enough. In that, I'd love to know from your perspective, what's one thing that or one or two things that you wish outside of people understood about being a photographer? Like, what's something that you really wish was more understood for people who are thinking about getting into the industry, but also from outside people who don't have any understanding of what it is we do? Are there a few things that you wish you could tell people that you just can't sort of express in your day-to-day life?
We romanticize winning a lot, but you also have to look at what's under the hood, right? With the journey that someone gone through to get to that winning stage, and that's what people don't see, they don't know, and most people not willing to take that journey. So if you're early in your journey, then just do whatever it takes, whatever it needs, and eventually you'll get to that point.
That's a really good one. I wish I could tell people that it's not harder than it looks on the outside.
This is something that I've been wanting to do, the short reel, but I kept forgetting. Is photography is not about the camera that you use. It doesn't matter you use the iPhone or you use $70,000 camera. It's about the lighting. There's a lot of circumstances. People have been taking photos with the iPhone and it turned out very ugly, and they go, "Oh, Gigi, you take photo, you got a nice camera." I said, "Dude, the lighting's so out of whack here. Regardless of what camera you use, you're still gonna get like pretty crazy stuff."
I could not agree more with that, G. I tell people that, all the time. That people are like, "How do you get your work to look so good?" Well, it's about having a good understanding. Here's a prime example for you. Like, have a look at this. Here I am. I look horrible right now, G, don't I? Like, has nothing to do. Like, I'm using the best quality camera. Yeah, I'm using the best quality in the world. But if I don't have this, I look terrible, right? It's not about like. There's so much to understanding where to position people, how to stand, where to aim, angles,
totally,
composition, so much more. And you could have an iPhone and get really amazing shots. And I think there is definitely something, like we said before, upgrading your gear when it's standing in the way of what you're trying to achieve, yes. But when you're first starting, it's probably not. And you can experiment and try a lot of different things with whatever gear you've got.
Yes, you can use a phone camera. If you got the best lighting set up, then your photo is going to look schmicky. Like me, I've got a rim light. This is intentional, by the way. Like, the rim light's here on the side, and then this light here in the back. And then the key lights, like this one. This is intentional, right?
Yeah. There's so much that goes into it that people don't sort of see behind the scenes.
I know.
Well, I really appreciate you helping us unpack a bit of your journey and your thought process today, G. And I think, kind of stripping back a few things to kind of show people behind the scenes. I think it's so important. Where can people go to keep up to date with your online courses, but also your workshop that will be happening next year in Bali? We're very excited for that. I'm sure it'll happen. So, where can people go to hear about all this stuff?
You go to my Instagram, Red Imagination Adventure. If you go to the link tree there, there's probably the first link there. You can register your email. So when the online workshop, online Astro course off the ground, you'll be notified. with the tour to Bali, it's not up yet. I'm still working with them, but eventually I'll publish that on Instagram as well.
Lovely. And we'll leave the links to all your stuff down below, and also the link to our previous podcast episode that we did last year. If you want to know why your business name is called that, or what it is, we sort of talked all about that in our first episode. So to definitely go back there and have a listen to that. We dive into much more of your like origin story in that episode, which I thought was a really good chat.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, G. I look back at those episodes. I was in a very different sort of place to where I am now, and I definitely feel much more relaxed with the process of the podcast. So it's been good. Thanks, G.
All right, Mike. Thanks for having me.
And that's the end of today's episode. If you're watching on YouTube, there'll be another episode linked up here or down below the like button. And while you're down there, why don't you leave me a comment to let me know that you were here? And I'd love to hear what you took away from this episode. If you're listening to the audio version as well on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave me a rating or review. It does really help to get the show out to a new audience of people just like yourself who would also be super motivated by these episodes. As we tell stories of creative people, I want to pay my respects to the first creatives of the land on which I'm recording this podcast, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of so-called Australia. Editing and post-production on this episode was done by Mossy Heart Media, and music by JW Payton.